Andy Carlson here, Purple for the Win podcast, letting you know that we'll be here all off-season long talking the Vikings angle on everything. Combine, pro days, free agency, the draft, OTAs, training camp in 2017. Baby. Get the show on 1500 ESPN, Podcast One, and the Podcast One app.
And whose team is this? Is this your team, or is this your daddy's team?
Thanks for listening to the Dad Mode Podcast, common sense parenting in a politically correct world. Here's your host, Andy Carlson.
Welcome back to the Dad Mode Podcast, common sense parenting, a politically correct world. I'm your host, Andy Carlson, at Andy Carlson Show on the Twitter machine. I'm a father. I have no idea what I'm doing, but you and either they're chiefy, so let's try and learn something together today. Website is dadmodepod.com. If you want to tweet us, we're at dadmodepod, or just use the hashtag dadmode. And also, if you want to support the show, easiest way to do it, dadmodepod.com/Amazon. Take you right to the homepage, bookmark it. You know what to do there. We'll get a couple nickels in our pocket, and we'll keep on rolling on. The happy week after Memorial Day weekend, everyone. I hope you had a fun, safe weekend, and took some time out to remember why we have Memorial Day. And it really lends itself, remembering those who paid the ultimate price, defending our country, land of the free, because of the brave. It's a really important holiday. And it's something that's been lost in the American ethos, but this is a whole argument for another day. But it also lends itself, with the extra day off, federal holiday, everything's closed, to go around and take care of some of your ancestors' graves. Like your family members that have passed on, whether they're the veteran, whether they gave their life in combat or not. And that's what we've done. That's what we did this year. This goes back to what we did as a kid too, because my grandpa. This is a grandpa episode. My grandpa and grandma and parents, we would go on Memorial Day. We would, before the cookout and all the good stuff. Usually on the Sunday, like after church, we go around to all the grave sites, right? So it'd be Rushford Lutheran Cemetery, be a Highland Prairie Cemetery, and then there would be a third one. I forget exactly which one it was, but there was a third cemetery that we'd visit as well. And because I remember it would be like really, really old, like passed on, like gravestones from the early 1900s, like cats that were born in the late 1800s, stuff like that. And I remember as a kid that it was, it's kind of, the weather was good, and you get out in the cemetery, and it was fun because Highland Prairie Church, they have a miniature church, a miniature chapel, right? It's literally a scaled church built for kids. And so I would always go in there, pretend to do services and do mass, even though we weren't Catholic, we were Lutheran, but whatever. And just going around and planting new flowers and, churning up some of the old dirt that was in the urns and replacing that, and watering and weeding and scrubbing headstones, everything like that. It's a good duty. It's something, it's a good practice to instill into kids. And we're doing that now with Mugsy. We didn't travel last year since she was just about one. I can't remember why we didn't. But anyways, we traveled back to Rushford this year, and Mugsy was along, and she's 2, and she's got her words, and she's speaking. And I just realized this is actually the first time that she met her grandpa, or her grandpa Bruce Carlson, because my dad talked on here a bunch. My dad died a number of years ago, and this is the first time that she'd actually visited the headstone. And the headstone's out at Rushford Lutheran, and it's this black, not quite onyx, but it's like a black granite headstone. It's beautiful. It's got etchings of deer and wildlife. So my dad was a big appreciator of. Wasn't a hunter, but definitely appreciated nature and wildlife, and it was just really sweet. It's like, how kids are curious and they go around touching things, having fun. Kids don't know how to act in the cemetery, and we had to admonish her a couple times for actually walking on the headstones, acting like they were, things at the park to walk across. But I don't know, it's like there was just a weird moment where she knelt down and she ran her fingers across the letters, and then she was like, B-R-U-C-E. So it's like she knew. Yeah, it's and this might be cognitive dissonance, but I actually believe that they had a moment there, that they had some sort of spiritual connection. Dad looking down from heaven, and all of a sudden, he got to meet his granddaughter for the first time at the gravesite, even though he's been watching over her since the day she was born. And yeah, it made me really wistful, as it were, as most of these moments do, because thank goodness for the wife's parents. Mugsy has a great pair of grandparents, and she's got a great grandpa that she calls Papa, and he's fantastic with her. And the wife's mom is just she's super grandma. She's really great at what she does. But I mean, just how great it would have been if she would have had two grandpas. And I remember it was going to be odds against, because my dad was already pretty old when I was adopted. He was, I want to say, like 42-ish when I was adopted, when I came over at 9 months old from South Korea, the good Korea. Yeah. And, even because we waited till about 30 to have a kid, so he would have been, would he have been 70? No, he couldn't have been 42. Anyways, he was older. So, and he was already having some mobility issues. He had bad knees. He had a bad back even before he had the soft tissue cancer. So, maybe he would have been, like the young active grandpa. You see at the zoo, or even out, you see these young kids, and you're like, is that the grandpa or just a really old dad? Because I think people, especially socioeconomically smart people, are waiting into their 30s, into even their 40s to have kids, because they want to be financially set. Because I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have a kid at 22, and not like your career and your professional life barely getting off the ground, or even like the kids who have babies as teenagers. They don't even finish high school. They grab whatever job they can get, and they're locked into that for the rest of their lives. And I mean, maybe they bust their ass. Maybe they work their way up to middle management at the tire shop or at a fast food place. But it's not gonna. They're not gonna be able to provide the kind of life for their kids and themselves that they would have if they would have waited, gone to college or got a vocational training, because as that we always look down on people who get training as like a welder, a long haul truck driver, a carpenter, electrician. Some of that's actually a trade, but you can earn a damn good living in a lot of those jobs. You can get $50 an hour. You can be in a union. That's a damn fine good life. I mean, you're making almost six figures, and you didn't go to college, and that's again, we're sort of diverting there. Anyways, so I couldn't even imagine having a kid that young. So maybe he wouldn't have been like the active grandpa playing catch in the yard with Mugsy, but he would have been a great grandpa, and he would have imparted a lot of wisdom. He imparted a lot of wisdom on me, and I just think about my grandpa and everything that I learned from work ethic, to being handy, to working with electricity, to being accountable and responsible. And just that wisdom would have been great from two grandparents, even though I was essentially raised with one grandparent as well. So it was just a kind of a unique moment. And I don't know, like, we'll tell Mugsy about this story the first time that she met her grandpa when she was 2. And we'll take her out there in subsequent years as well. And I just hope to pass this down to her, because that's what we did. We went out to the gravestones, and we cleaned up a little bit. We laid some flowers, and we had a moment. Oh, she got to meet her great grandpa and grandma as well as they're buried probably about 50 feet from where my dad is. And also speaking of like responsibility and foresight, my grandpa and grandma, they bought their burial plot and their headstone like 5 years in advance before my grandpa died. And just a great photo. They have a great photo of them on, with their walkers, those walkers that you can turn around and put the brakes on and sit on that old people have all the time. So them in their walkers, right above their headstone, and just like the biggest, like poop eating grins on their face. It's just a great picture. I gotta get a copy of that because it shows like their sense of humor, and also B, just what kind of people they were. Like they don't want their kids to have the burden of paying for the plot or paying for the headstone. Everything's taken care of. We're all good to go. I think my grandma even wrote part of her own eulogy. Yeah, it's just impressive, and it's important to teach kids about their history. Like I like finding out about how my great grandpa had a tanning shop. Now, by tanning shop, I don't mean like the stupid UV cancer rays, those light beds that the little teeny bopper girls try to do before they go to Cozumel on Daddy's dime. Yeah, not that sort of tanning. Leather tanning. Back when leather tanning was an actual trade profession. I mean, that's amazing. And how great grandpa came over from Norway. You don't hear too much about like the Norwegian immigrants or the Scandinavian immigrants, except that was really big. I mean, how do you think Minnesota is like mostly Norwegian and Swedes and Finns? And oh yeah, you betcha. They all came over in droves at some point in the late 1800s and settled here because the land of 10,000 lakes really reminded them of their homeland and similar climate. And it's just really cool, even though I'm not a blood relative. I'm adopted, but this is my family. And learning all of these various things, or like how Grandpa had a second sister who passed away when she was really young, and then we saw that headstone. Like there's nothing. Cemeteries interest me in that you see the older sections, the older sections of the cemetery where some of the older stones aren't kept up. And you see like the 1835 to 1836, and you're like, "Aw, that's kind of sad. I wonder what happened." And just remembering like, oh yeah, kids died all the time back in the day because of disease or malnutrition or just the hardscrabble way of life back then. Yeah, it's crazy. But hey, let's not vaccine our kids against measles. Yeah, let's not do that. Stupid Jay Cutler. His stupid wife. Get out of here. Yeah, let's just have a measles outbreak in St. Paul for no reason. Like, no reason whatsoever. Yeah, because it's almost like, now, for like first generation immigrants, I do give a little bit of a pass to. They're coming from a country where it's not, like it's not part of their way of life. Get your kids shot up right away, have them all vaccinated, da-da-da. But the hoity-toity suburban crunchy couples that read one study from a doctor who's not even accredited anymore and has been like debunked like several times over. It's like, oh yeah, let's ramp up the degree of difficulty on living again, because we kicked measles ass like 50 to 100 years ago, but let's bring it back. Yeah, that always annoys me. What's this episode about? Yeah, but I don't know. I hope that Mugsy has a sense of wonder. I hope she, and also future kids as well, they want to know what their great-grandpa Rocky, their great-grandma Elaine was like, what Grandpa Bruce was like. And also cool thing is that my grandparents' house, which was about a couple of houses down across the street from me, they sold it before they moved into a townhouse, like a single level townhouse, right? Because as you get older, you want everything on one floor. And they sold that house, well, I'll say like 15 years ago, to a nice couple with a bunch of young kids as well. Drove by the house, and You could tell that there's a lot of love there. There was a lot of love in that house to begin with, and it's an old house. It's a beautiful craftsman style house. It's got stucco. It's got hardwood. It's got built-ins like mahogany features. It's got a lot of great like old school style house stuff in it, and you can tell that house is being appreciated. And that's something that I really enjoy. And the best part, my stupid basketball hoop is still up. Yeah, because that thing went up when I was 4. So that was 1989. And 11, so that hoop has been up for 28 years. Yeah. The rim got replaced twice that I remember. But it's the same backboard. And also, it's got the sticker from when the Wolves changed their logo. So that had to have been like late 90s, maybe like 97-ish. So that's been up for about 20 years. That sticker is still there. It's a little bit worn from the weather. And, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I hope those kids are getting as much enjoyment out of that basketball hoop as I got as a kid. And I remember, like, the first time we replaced the rim, I had to have been, like, 7 or 8. And we were waiting for – because this was back before the internet. And this is back before everything like that. So we went down to the hardware store. We ordered a new rim. Yeah, and we had to wait like 3 days for it to get shipped into the hardware store. And then, my grandpa would go put it back up. But I was so hoop obsessed as a kid that I shot against the backboard, right? And there was like a little piece of sheet metal, like a little like connector piece that was from the rim that would like, like the door stops. If you flick it, it goes. So that's how I would judge if the shot was good or not. But if I hit the backboard just square and then the little piece of sheet metal would go. Yeah, and that's how I played basketball for 3 days. Yeah, and gosh, what were we talking about? And yeah, that would be nice because that's a really I've talked about it before, but that's an understated part of my childhood because my grandparents retired right when I came around, and they were able to watch me as my parents worked, which is just such a massive, massive advantage. And it's a little bit of jealousy, but parents of young kids who have their parents around and in proximity to watch the kids just save so much on childcare. And I mean, don't take that for granted. I mean, definitely don't take that for granted. Like I've a bunch of my friends got young kids, and they got 2 or 3 kids, and the amount that they pay for the nanny, like some of them have an in-house nanny. They're not killing it in the financial department, but it makes sense for them professionally. And it's like, damn, my goodness, you could have a yacht by now. Yeah, it's so if you're a parent and your parents are able to watch your young kids for free, I mean, but. Thank the big man every single night. Bless your lucky stars. And that was a big part of my formative years. Spending time with grandpa and grandma. Beating my grandma's ass in Trivial Pursuit all the time because it was the junior edition, and we played it so many times that I just memorized all the questions. Yeah, because there was maybe like 100 question cards, right? And it's got all the different topics. It's got like 7 or 8 questions on each card. I memorized every single question. Yeah. So I whooped her ass. I kicked grandma's ass on the porch every single day at like 2 o'clock. Or no, 2 or 3 o'clock, because that was always coffee time. She would have coffee and a cookie. I'd have lemonade or milk and a cookie, and I would just whoop her ass all over the place playing Trivial Pursuit Junior. Yeah, and then I'd help Grandpa fix some drywall or do some handyman project around the house, and I just wish Mugsy had that, because her the wife's parents are a couple years away from retirement, and who knows, maybe by then we'll have upgraded the Carlson Casa 2.0. We'll have a mother and father-in-law suite, which would be great, and Mugsy and future kids can have the grandparents around a little bit more, and. Yeah, it's just beyond my selfishness of, hey, how about some free babysitting? The life experiences that the grandparents being around the grandkids and the grandkids having grandparents around. It's something that kind of miss out. Yeah, and they say you don't become a real man until your father dies. Yeah, I don't think I was ready at the time, but still working things out. Wish he was here for Mugsy, and that's what we're gonna leave with. Tell a friend, spread the word about Dad Mode Podcast. It's we're coming at you every week. I know sometimes that we have to miss a week. We rebroadcast some of the episodes, but fortunately, a lot of the content is evergreen, and so just keep tuning in there, iTunes, Stitcher, and especially iHeart. Hey, we got our own channel on iHeartRadio. I think that's one of the easiest ways to get at the show. Follow us on Twitter at DadModePod. Ooh, here we go. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, all at Andy Carlson Show. Yeah, hashtag very on brand. And the website is dadmodepod.com. But until next time, be a man, be a father, and go Dad Mode. And I love ya.
Think the episode you just heard is worth $1? Well, send it our way. Visit dadmodepod.com/support to find out how. Be a man, be a father. Go Dad Mode. The music is created and produced by Deeb. To hear more of his tracks, visit soundcloud.com/Deeb.